Daniel O'Donnell, great to welcome you to noise11.com, and we look forward to welcoming you back to Australia very soon as well.
It's coming quite soon. I mean, it's amazing that it's 5 years since we were there, you know, and, you know, we were meant to come in 2020. We were there in 19, and then I was asking, could we come back sort of in 18 months as opposed to 2 years, and that was kind of part of the plan. But as we know, the world kind of stopped turning.
Yeah, so we'll pretend that, you know, it's only been 2 years since you've been here, because the 3 years where nothing happened really doesn't exist. We just pretend it was never there. Yeah. Well, it's an interesting time to be coming back to, because you've got another album out. And, you know, how much of the new album then gets absorbed into a Daniel O'Donnell set list when you have it?
I don't tend to do an awful lot unless somebody asks for something, you know, from it. I might do 2 or 3. You know, we've had, I think we've had 3 albums since we were there. So you're kind of, what do you do? I do a lot of the old stuff too. And maybe a couple from each album, just to, you know, the more recent ones since we were there last. And then if people, you know, like them, they'll probably get them at the show and take them home and listen to them. They may well have them too. But if somebody, you know, we're here in Missouri now, and like some days people ask for a song, and if we can do it, we'll just try and fit it in, you know.
Because I think How Lucky I Must Be around the 40th studio album that you've had. I've kind of lost count of the number of studio albums.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, there's more than that, I suppose, as far as albums are concerned. But I've recorded an album every year since 1983.
Wow.
And I suppose that is 40 years. There was a few years, there was 2, you know. So definitely 40, or maybe a couple more than 40.
Yeah, but I know you have that record for having the 25 consecutive top 40 albums in the UK, the first person to have ever achieved that, which is rather spectacular.
Yeah, I suppose the first album went in 88. I think that was the first year. And pretty much every year since, I think every year, at some point during the year, we've had an album in the top 40, which is amazing, really. I mean, a great following, a very loyal following, you know. And it's the same there, you know, well, I mean, I'm hoping it'll be, you know, the tour will do well. It's hard to know when it's such a long time. And, you know, a lot of the people, I suppose, are a little bit older now, especially a lot of the ones that would come to see us, the older people, you know, will they be able to get out? But every time we go somewhere, there's a kind of a new batch of people that seems to come out of wherever, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what is it about the Irish songs? I mean, they seem to have this evergreen feeling to them that doesn't matter what the generation is, every new generation knows the old songs.
Yeah, I suppose they are familiar. There's a familiarity about it. And, you know, the ballads that I would do, they're very well known. And even the country songs, you know, I love the traditional country. You know, even if it's an original song, it seems to fit into where the other ones are, you know. There's a thread pulling through, and they seem to blend, yeah.
Well, you pay tribute to quite a number of artists during your show too. I think Elvis gets a bracket of songs. There's some.
He is at the minute, yeah. I don't know what we'll be doing when we get down your way, whether we'll be doing that or not. We'll see. We may well do a wee bit of Elvis. It's a while since I did it in the show until this year, and we decided we'd put it in again. So, I mean, you can never go wrong, you know, with Elvis. They love it, and you know, people just sing along and, yeah, bop along with it.
Yeah. What about Australian artists? Have you ever covered Australian artists over the years?
I haven't covered a lot, you know. I did Beyond the Great Divide. Gene Stafford had that. But I haven't done a lot of songs that I heard, you know, Australian artist. I liked Jean a lot. I liked her singing. Met Jimmy Little a few times, God rest him. He came to the show, he and his wife, in Canberra one time, which was a great thrill. And I mean, he was a great singer. And I suppose Jean reminded me a bit of Loretta Lynn, both in look and sound. You know, she was a really good singer. And then we one time when we were there, we had, God, I don't know what they were called. Was it 101? Casey Chambers and her brother and her parents.
Nash Chambers, Bill Chambers.
They had a group that time.
Yeah.
I think it was something like 101 and there was a time when we had to have, you know, a support, an Australian support. And they were part of it, and I really liked her stuff. I followed her, you know, after that, because she did really well.
Oh yeah, Casey's massive down in Australia. And John Farnham, of course. John is not well at the moment. You're the Voice would be a very.
Is he not?
No. He's very serious.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but you know, You're the Voice. Now there's a song to consider.
Yeah, must look at some of them.
When was the first hit that you had in Ireland? That must have been exciting when there you were in the top 40 for the first time, and then you went on to replicate that more than a dozen times after that.
Yeah, I recorded the first record I recorded was 1983. The first number one we had was 87 with Take Good Care of Her. Then in England, Top of the Pops was I Want to Dance With You in 92. And you know, I was in Australia. We went out to Australia, my manager at the time, Sean, and we went out in 92, just not to tour, but just to meet people. And while we were in Australia, word came to say that I Want to Dance With You was most likely going to go into the top 30. And if it did, I would be on Top of the Pops. And we left Australia a day early. And when we were in Singapore, Sean called home. There was no cell phones or mobile phones that time. And we found out in Singapore that I was going to be on Top of the Pops the next week.
Yeah. Who was on the show that week? And
well, I can't remember. The Shaman was on.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So that was quite a big gap between me and the Shaman.
but that's when charts were exciting. When you could have Daniel O'Donnell and the Shaman on the chart at the same time.
It was great.
Yeah.
And you know, you must have liked Top of the Pops because it was a great show. You know.
Yeah.
And I grew up with it. You know, I was that generation that grew up with it. You know, Susie Quattro and all them, you know, singers.
All those top 40 hits that you did have, you know, having more than a dozen hits. I'm surprised Boyzone never gave you a call and asked you to do a band.
Well, I don't know. What would I do for them? Would it lift them up? Maybe.
Yeah. Tell me about this town you're from. Is it pronounced Donegal?
I'm from County Donegal. It's a county. And then I'm from a little village called Kincasla. So there's a Donegal town as well, and then the County Donegal. But I come from a little fishing village. You know, it's so small. There's only a shop and the post office and in the shop, and there's one pub. Yeah, there used to be two shops.
When I looked up the town, there's a lot of famous O'Donnells over 600 years from there.
Everybody is O'Donnell. We all have nicknames, you know, to differentiate between who people are, yeah.
So what's your nickname?
Bosco.
Bosco?
Yeah, my eldest brother was christened John Bosco after St. John Bosco. He was very ill when he was born, and my mother was in the hospital with the nuns, and the nuns said, "What are you going to call the baby?" And she said, "I have no name." She says, "Well, will you call him John Bosco? Because we're making an novena to John Bosco, St. John Bosco, that he'll come through." And that's how he became John Bosco. And then all of us became the Boscos. And it's very common at home to have a nickname. Usually you're called after your father or your mother. So it wouldn't be O'Donnell. You know, my mother was called Julia, and she was called after her mother, Julia Margaret, instead of Julia McGonigal.
Yeah.
And my father was Francie, and instead of O'Donnell, he was called Francie Doney Owen. So it's strange. My wife just can't get away with it, all these names. But you would never, the common surnames have to have a nickname to differentiate between families. And we have no numbers on the doors. We have no streets. You know, now we have air codes, which has only just come in the past few years. So every house has a special code. Yeah. So I could just give you my code. You wouldn't need my name at all. Yeah. And the letter would come. But that's only in the last couple of years.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yes, I grew up in Sydney in the 1960s and went to St. John Bosco School.
Well, there you are now.
So there you go. Something we have in common from the other side of the world.
Alien to yourself.
Yes, out of the Sydney suburban suburbs. You were in your sister's band at one point, weren't you?
I was from 1981 to 83. Margaret, or Margot, she's known in the business. I travelled with her, and then I made my first record in 83. That was "Stand Beside Me" and "My Donegal Shore," and I still sing those two songs in most shows. That was the beginning, and I was 2 years with her, and then I started a group in 83, and it wasn't until 86 really that something clicked. I don't know what it was then more than before or after, and from 86 on, it's fantastic, really.
Yeah, I do know you had your own band at one point, Country Fever.
That's right. The Fever never.
When was the last time they got back together?
Oh Lord, never. We just were a small group. You know, that was the first band I had, and we called it Country Fever. And then I had the Grassroots. That time, every band had a name. And then when I started to do well, the band had no name. It was just Daniel O'Donnell and his band. That became very common then. There wasn't names on the bands then. It was, you know, just the person and his band or her band.
Well, I'm beginning to think that's an Irish trait now. I mean, you two had Where the Streets Have No Name. Daniel O'Donnell had Where the Band Had No Name.
Oh, dear.
You probably have become more famous in Ireland now than a lot of the international acts that come to Ireland. Do you have a lot of famous friends as well? Do you hang out with famous
well, you know, I don't really. I mean, I know a lot of people in my own sort of area, the country music, that type of, but no, I don't. We don't hang out that much, you know. We meet at functions, or if there's concerts, or we go on cruises. Actually, Gertrude Burns does a cruise every year, and I've been on it now for quite a few times, and we love that. I love it because I get to see everybody, I get to hear everybody, and it's really good, you know. But we don't have a lot of big nights out. No, it's a very low-key life we live.
Yeah, but you do
occasionally now we'd go to Leo's Tavern, where Clanad, I'm sure you know Clanad.
Yeah, Clanad, yeah. Very big down here, yeah.
Maya, we'd see Maya good, but we'd go down to Leo's. Maya does nearly every month. Does she calls it Club Bia. It's an Irish thing. Bia is live. So it's like a live club, and young people get to sing 2 songs if they want, you know, to register. She's great for that, you know. So Maya, we would see a good bit. So I suppose that's famous enough.
Well, I'm pretty impressed that you have your own visitors centre in Ireland.
Well, no, unfortunately, that's closed now. That was a visitor centre, a man and his wife had an entertainment place, and they asked me would I give them the stuff, and I didn't really want to do it. And he said, well, it might be good for the area. Well, I said, then if it's good for the area, surely. So I gave it all to him. But then it was sold, and the people that bought it wanted to make apartments. So I have all this stuff back again that I don't know what to do with. I have it in boxes everywhere. There's gold discs coming out of everywhere in the garage.
Yeah. Well, maybe build your own. I'm very impressed too that in an episode of Father Ted, they did a piss take of you, didn't they? They
Oh, they did. Yes, they did. Yeah, and it wasn't really said it was me, but everybody seemed to know it was me.
It was Donald O'Daniel.
Oh yeah, Donald O'Daniel. Yeah, well, I suppose that's quite a giveaway, isn't it? It's amazing that's something I never thought would be, ever in my life, that the like of that would happen.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, on the radio here, when I say here at home, I might be driving along and they would play and they would say, that's Daniel. They wouldn't even say that's Daniel O'Donnell. That's Daniel. And I find that amazing, because I'm delighted that I, had the success, but I never thought I would have the success.
Well, it's good to know that you're coming back to Australia. It's been many, many times. How many have you kept count?
Well, I think this might be 17, but a lot of times.
A lot of times. Well, it's going to be good to see you back in Australia.
I should have used the two hands and then I'd know better.
You have to take your shoes and socks off to get to the total number.
But we've enjoyed every time, a great follow and always a great interest when we come. The people are very appreciative. I suppose it's such a long journey.
Yeah.
And maybe not everybody travels to Australia, but we had a great following down through the years. And, I hope that the tour will do well and that, it'll be successful.
Absolutely. It's great to see you, and look forward to seeing you in the flesh down here. Thank you, Daniel.
Great. Thank you.